Breaking news, some more of it on SportsCenter. The Jets have released wide receiver Davante Adams, sources told our Adam Schefter. The move saves the team nearly $30 million against the salary cap and further distances the Jets from the Aaron Rodgers era. Adams came to the Jets in a trade with the Raiders last season, but he and Rodgers failed to find the same success that they enjoyed in Green Bay, all but putting an end to the failed Aaron Rodgers experiment. As we welcome in Dan Graziano and Tim Hasselbeck. And Graz, I'll start with you with this move. Some of this stuff widely expected. The Jets just made it official with the Davante Adams news. What's the market expected to be for Davante?
I think he'll have a strong market. He had some very excellent games down the stretch for the Jets. He had a game where I believe he had almost 200 yards in the second half with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. He may not be the explosive player he once was, but he's still a receiver that can help some teams, and there are a lot of teams out there looking for veteran wide receivers. You saw the Commanders just over the weekend agreeing to a trade for Deebo Samuel from the 49ers. T. Higgins is franchised. He's off the market. Chris Godwin, the Buccaneers are trying to keep. So these veteran wide receivers that do hit the market, as Davante Adams just did this afternoon, are going to be in demand. The question is, does he want to continue to play with Aaron Rodgers? Will he wait to see where Aaron Rodgers lands, or is he going to go find a new home on his own?
Yeah, listen, I think going to find a new home on your own makes sense, because when you look at his ability and some of the places that would be interested, look, I mean, I think Buffalo, Green Bay, San Francisco, Kansas City, I think the market for some of these veteran wide receivers is still going to be pretty strong. It won't be, the money that he's used to making, but I think it's going to be strong for Adams, much like it will be for some of the other guys that Dan mentions, guys like Chris Godwin.
Yeah, and look, Davante Adams, as Graz alluded to a minute ago, he showed that he has plenty left in the tank. One would wonder, though, after what happened with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers this year, to your point, maybe go find another new home, try to resurrect what's left in your career, because it's been proven that he could still play the NFL receiver position at a high level. We are getting close to the NFL's new league year. A week from Wednesday, the 12th, is when we have fun with that. But now the restructuring happening as we speak. As Todd Archer, our Cowboys reported within the last 15 minutes, reported that the Cowboys have restructured CeeDee Lamb's deal. That's going to save them about $20 million in cap space. Graz, your reaction to the Cowboys trying to make some moves now to free up some cap room?
Yeah, another widely expected move, as you referenced earlier, and the Cowboys will clear a lot more cap room when they inevitably restructure Dak Prescott's contract. The way the Cowboys do these contracts, both CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott were extended last offseason, and the restructure is almost built into the plan. The way the salary and the bonus structure is, they were always going to restructure CeeDee Lamb for cap room. They're going to restructure Dak Prescott for cap room. They're able to do a deal today with their defensive tackle, Osa Odigizua, prevented them from having used the franchise tag. So his cap number will be down around $6 million instead of $25 million. So the Cowboys doing what they need to do to clear room to go out and sign, I guess, somebody this year, which would be more than they did last year. Yeah,
exactly. The infamous "we're all in." Now they're going to have the money to show everyone that they're going to be all in. So, Tim, knowing what Graz said, they're expected to free up a lot of money. In your mind, how should the Cowboys spend the money they need to get back and compete?
Well, I mean, I think, look, there's a lot of places I think the Cowboys need to get better. And, I probably would start at running back. Now, it doesn't mean that you would necessarily spend that money in free agency, on a running back. But I think, running back is probably the position where I think they could, maybe get the most bang for their buck in terms of impact on their football team. I also think when you look at, a complimentary receiver, I think looking at tight end, if you flip to the defensive side of the ball, I do think that you start to look at the secondary as places you can spend money. So, look, Dallas, to me, when you look at the rest of their division alone, because of, the money tied up at quarterback, I think that they're definitely going to have to be selectively aggressive, I guess, Matt, in terms of where they spend their money.
They're going to have the money to spend. It's just whether or not they spend it wisely, which has always been the condition with Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. And in a draft loaded with running backs and some of those other pieces, they can make a severe dent in some of the holes that they have coming out of the season. Gentlemen, much more from you guys throughout the show.
We're just getting started on SportsCenter. Could Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders go one? More breaking news here on SportsCenter. The Eagles and Saquon Barkley have agreed to a 2-year extension worth over $41 million. Barkley becomes the first running back to make over $200 million in salary. In his first season in Philly, Barkley nearly broke the regular season rushing record and helped lead the team to its second Super Bowl victory. 2-round mock draft on ESPN.com this morning. The big headline, he has the Giants trading up to number 1 to draft quarterback Cam Ward. It will be the Giants' first time having the top pick since 1965 when they drafted Tucker Fredrickson. Next, he has the Browns drafting Shedeur Sanders, and the Giants swapping picks with the Titans, taking Abdul Carter at number 3. And we are so excited to be joined by NFL draft analyst Jordan Reed and football analyst Tim Hasselbeck. All right, Jordan, so we just saw it. You have the Giants trading up to number 1 to get Cam Ward. Why?
Well, it's simple. The Giants have a huge need at quarterback, and I'm not so sure that the Titans are in love with any of the quarterbacks at the top of this year's draft. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, they have to win next year. There's no way that they can come out of this draft without a quarterback. I believe Cam Ward is far and away the best quarterback in this year's draft. The off-script creativity, just the arm angles that he can throw from, his patience from the pocket, and then just the underdog mentality that he's had. He's had a huge impact on every single stop that he's been at, whether it's Incarnate Word, in the FCS ranks, Washington State, and then also we saw what he was able to do at Miami. He's going to need a demanding head coach like Brian Daboll. I love this fit for both of them.
All right, Tim, do you think that Ward would be a good fit for the Giants?
I do, and Jordan's exactly right in terms of the need. Look, they need to get it right at that position. It's been a struggle really since, Eli Manning was there. And so with that being the case, the way you can typically fix it is, drafting the right guy. And I love everything that Jordan said about Cam Ward's path. It's been a difficult path, and I think there's something about, the adversity and the struggle and the grit to do what he did in the stops that he made in college football. And I've said this before, the best thing you can say about a quarterback is that he makes the guys around him better. I think that would be an accurate description of everywhere Cam Ward has played. I would agree that he's the best quarterback prospect in this year's class. And so if you've got to move up to get him, then certainly it makes sense.
Yeah, he's shifty, he's swaggy, and if he doesn't get taken number 1 overall, he did say, if you don't draft me, that is your fault. Okay, Jordan, you have Shedeur Sanders going number 2 to the Browns. Why is that?
Well, this is another team that has their feet to the fire, and they have to win next year. I look at Kevin Stefanski and his offense. I love Shedeur Sanders' fit in. We're talking about somebody that's a polished pocket passer. His game is predicated upon his accuracy and his ball placement, but also he's the toughest quarterback in this year's draft. He did not have great protection at Colorado, but he constantly was able to get up and really have an effect game in and game out. I love the poise that he plays with, and we know the pedigree that he has as well. I really like this spot for Shedeur in Cleveland.
All right, Tim, what do you make of Sanders suiting up for Cleveland?
Yeah, I think Jordan's right about the fit. He is a polished passer, and look, he's coming from, Pat Shurmur coaching him at Colorado, and so the similarities in terms of what he did at Colorado and some of the things that they would do in Cleveland match. I also think he's kind of ready from a mental perspective. He's a good decision maker and he's accurate. My concern with Shedeur would always be this. At the top of round 1, it's usually reserved for the elite of the elite in terms of, athleticism. And I just don't think that he's there yet, either, in terms of arm ability, as well as just, the type of athlete that he is. I think sometimes it can be misleading because his father's Deion Sanders, but I think it's rarefied air when you're talking about quarterbacks at the top of the round 1 physically. I'm just not sure that he fits that. At the same time, Cleveland is desperate. And I do think he probably would play above his physical ability in Cleveland.
So where do you think that realistically he should get drafted?
Well, listen, I just think when you look at him physically, in terms of arm strength, mobility, those types of things, he's not a top half of the first round kind of guy. Same thing I said about Mac Jones when he was coming out. I don't think that in a game where it is littered with freak athletes across the board that you draft the most, important, position in the game, and it's somebody that has athletic deficiencies. And so, look, for me, it wouldn't be in the first half of the first round unless need forced your hand. And I think in, a situation like Cleveland or the Jets or some of these other spots, it may just do that.
NFL draft 51 days away from today. Thank you, guys.
Golf. I mentioned Sam Darnold a moment ago, and that's kind of a big story because we're sitting here waiting 2 hours away from the NFL franchise tag deadline, 4 p.m. Eastern. The one player is going to be Darnold that we're watching. Sources tell our Adam Schefter that the Vikings are unlikely to tag the veteran quarterback. Darnold had the best season of his career last year while leading Minnesota to a 14-3 record. The Vikings are interested in re-signing Darnold, sources said, but at less than the $40 million price tag that he would earn if he is franchised. It's the going rate for a quarterback in the averages. We welcome back Graziano and Tim Hasselback. So, Graz, where do we stand now? Just under 2 hours away from the tag deadline expiring in the NFL with Darnold and the Vikings.
Well, as you mentioned, Adam Schefter reporting it's unlikely that they use the tag on Sam Darnold. If they do an about-face and tag him at 4 o'clock Eastern today, I think it would be because they've identified a trade market for him, which to this point they have not. So the Vikings would like to have Sam Darnold back on their team, but there's a big caveat there. There are numbers at which they would not be comfortable. If they make too large a commitment to Sam Darnold, they worry about him standing in the way of J.J. McCarthy, who was their first-round pick last year, and they want McCarthy to be their quarterback when McCarthy is ready. So unless Sam Darnold is going to come back to the Vikings with a much lower contract demand than what they're anticipating he's going to get on the open market, he probably signs somewhere else, and Minnesota signs a lower-cost veteran, someone in the Daniel Jones mode, to pair with J.J. McCarthy for 2025.
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense when you have it laid out the way Dan just laid it out, that if the money's even close somewhere else, if you're Sam Darnold, you're going to play for somebody other than the Vikings. The Vikings basically just said to Sam Darnold, that's great, you threw 35 touchdown passes last year, but we drafted J.J. McCarthy last year. He's our future, and we're building around him. So it doesn't matter. And so you basically are dead man walking as a starting quarterback, if in Minnesota, if you're Sam Darnold. When you look at some of the other places, whether it be Tennessee, Las Vegas, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, like there should be a better landing spot for Sam Darnold than going back to Minnesota just waiting for J.J. McCarthy to ultimately end up taking your job.
Yeah, and if I'm Minnesota, I don't know that I would not franchise Sam Darnold, knowing you want J.J. McCarthy to get healthy. You know what you have in Darnold. He knows the system. Play it safe for another year before you can develop your quarterback in the future. We'll find out, though, 4 p.m. Eastern, NFL Live. I'll have you covered with that coming up in just a bit. Now, you mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers. As of right now, we know Justin Fields is on that roster, Dan Graziano. But you believe Fields, you said this yesterday, has one of the more interesting markets in the NFL right now. What do you mean by Fields and what potentially he could be doing here in the coming weeks?